Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the TC4RE Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jeramie Sutton, and I'm joined by co-host Alex Best. Now today we're going to be talking to Niall Simpson. He is the founder and managing director of recruitment agency Pursue Talent and also the founder of the Black Tech Sales Network. So we're going to be talking to him about all things communities and the amazing support and guidance that they can provide to their members. We're also going to be talking to him about the loads of opportunities that we have in the tech sector and looking at how we can encourage more people from all different ethnicities to take advantage of the career options that it can provide. So wherever you are, grab a pen, grab a notebook, and we hope that you enjoy this week's episode of the TC4RE Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the TC4RE Podcast. I am your host, Alex Best, and today I am joined by Jeramie Sutton. Hi, Jeramie, how you doing?
Hi, I'm great, thanks, Alex. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad. But today on the podcast, we have someone who has the ability or has gone and created a community for people within sales who are from a black background. He's just launched his own recruitment firm, if I've got that correct. We have Niall Simpson. So, hi Niall, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for inviting me on a pod. I'm looking forward to digging into this conversation, which is something I'm quite passionate about. Still learning as well, but hopefully I can shed some light into my community and help others build communities as well.
Brilliant.
No, so yeah, thank you, Niall, for joining us on the podcast today. And yeah, I'm really excited for the topic that we're focusing on, because we're going to be focusing on how to build a strong community within the tech sector, not just limiting that to your company, but going beyond that as well, and really looking into how you can build that community within an industry. So now I've sort of glossed over just some of the things that you're doing at the moment, but could you give our listeners an introduction about yourself and just what you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So two things going on, which are really exciting. I've just launched my own recruitment business that specializes in sales roles in the tech space. We're called Pursue Talent. I've recently set it up after 5 years at another business and thought that it was the right timing for me to launch my own thing. A lot of that confidence from setting up Pursue came from the launch of Black Tech Sales Network in 2000. So Black Tech Sales Network is a community of black sales professionals, black commercial professionals in the tech space. We're on a mission to sort of empower the next generation of sales leaders, commercial leaders in the tech space by bringing community together. We educate, we celebrate, we elevate our members through networking events, through workshops, through mentoring, and we're currently at around 400 members, and we're continuing to grow all the time. So yeah, managing the launch of Pursue Talent and managing BTSN at the same time.
Wow, sounds like no mean feat. And a great mission you've got there now. How are you getting on? So leading the network, but also starting up your own business sounds like it must be a busy time.
Yeah, super busy, like ridiculously actually. But I enjoy it. Like I feel comfortable within chaos. So like I'm enjoying like the whole every day being different, putting out fires, fighting battles all the time. But I love this. This is why I did it. So to be honest, I think I've learned to build up the sort of time management skills of managing BTSN alongside work when I was in my previous role, which I'll come on to later, and how I set BTSN up whilst I was at my previous business. So I think I've got much better over the last 2 years of managing the community, but then also managing recruitment as well. So, but still, it's a lot to take at the moment, but just being smart, being efficient, and not wasting time on things that are going to take too long right now. Just being really effective.
So I'm intrigued to know what inspired you to start BTSN, because I am a member of BTSN and I do think it's a great initiative, and the events and having that community is very important, because I do feel like I go there and leave the events energized and quite proud to see faces that are similar to mine, essentially, all meeting up and talking about their successes. So what drove you to really be the founder and the key player within BTSN?
Yeah, it's quite simple, really. So it came from just being a recruiter in the tech space, spending a lot of time on LinkedIn looking for candidates for the jobs that I'm working on. It was very clear to me from the beginning, getting in the industry, that there's a lack of Black representation in tech sales roles. And I always tell this story. I mean, as you can tell from my accent, I'm from Huddersfield. And moving to London in 2017 and learning like I didn't know anything about recruitment. I didn't know anything about the tech space. And then seeing what opportunities existed in sales roles in tech, it was almost like a light bulb moment, thinking, hang on, why are more people like me not getting into these industries? I'm speaking to candidates on a daily basis, asking what salaries they're on, thinking, wow, like he's only got, or she's only got 2 to 3 years experience. Why are more people like me or people from my background or from where I'm from getting into these industries? So yeah, I guess that was very clear from the beginning that there was a lack of representation. So I guess it took a few years for me to build the courage up to actually want to do something about it. So in my 3rd year in my previous role, I thought, look, like maybe we should do an event around it, do an event around increasing Black representation in tech. But to be honest, one event isn't going to do anything. People come along, they nod their head, they clap their hands, they leave, and then there's no action off the back of it. So I want to create something more meaningful, and that's why I thought about creating a community instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously an awesome mission, and by the by, but my extended family from Huddersfield, so there you go. Got a connection with it. But,
have you been before? Have you been?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I've had some of my best curries up in Huddersfield. So, it's, apart from the family, it's got a special place in my heart. But like, I'm really interested. What made you, I mean, I loved that, you finally got the courage. What gave you the courage to kind of actually go, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go out, see there's a challenge, I'm going to take it on?
Time was a big factor. So look, I'm not going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. Sorry, I think a lot of the time you think about doing these things and then you just kind of put it off because you think I ain't got the time for that. I'll do it next week. Or I'll do it next month. And if I'm honest, I set this up during COVID, so I was on furlough at the time, so I had a bit more time in my hands. But also it was just after George Floyd got murdered in the US. And I'd had this list of names of Black salespeople who I've spoken to in my role before or come across on LinkedIn. And I had this list of names from a while back, this when I was thinking about doing the event. And I just thought, with everything that was happening in America and all the sort of protests in 2020, I thought it was just the right timing. So I think the courage was just, I had more time on my hands, but also it was just a perfect time to start to make moves on that. So I think a few things played a part in my decision to start it, but I think it was definitely sort of the effects of what happened in 2020 and having more time on my hands.
Yeah, and that's really interesting that you say it was sort of kick-started from around the George Floyd event, because that's similar to TK as well. When TK originally was founded by the few founders that we had at that time, it was that was essentially the trampoline for us to go and say we want to set up this community where we're trying to drive more people into roles from underrepresented backgrounds. So I want to dig a little bit deeper into BTSN as well. Sure. Do you think you could share with listeners just the initiatives that you've got set up within BTSN and just how you're supporting those who are members?
Yeah, sure. So like this is always changing. It's always developing. It's always we're always innovating to try and make BTSN more valuable for the members. So I'll take it back a little bit actually. So BTSN, when we started, and still now, we've still got connections with universities and students, but in the beginning it was students and professionals. And the idea was that we put on events for both sides. We put on workshops for both parts of the community. We have mentoring that maybe links them two together. So there was a lot going on. And in the first 2 years or first 18 months of BTSN, we had lots of workshops for people to develop themselves in terms of their sales ability or other areas of their role. We had like lots of virtual events, obviously, because it was COVID, around like different topics of not just sales, but also like topics such as knowing your worth as a black person and getting salary and being able to ask for a pay increase and not having imposter syndrome, topics like that. We had events where talent managers could come and listen to our members speak about what it's like to be a black person in the workplace. We had loads of different initiatives. So it was kind of like, we was kind of just saying yes to everything. And I sat down at the beginning of the year just thinking, right, I'm going to step into a new sort of venture in terms of setting my business up. So I want to make sure that BTSN is a bit more clear for our members and isn't as sort of messy. Because I think with communities, you can say yes to a lot of things, but then you don't really achieve enough. So at the moment, what we're doing is we're keeping things really, really simple. So the initiatives, there's three key areas that we're focusing on, especially for this year anyway, which is more face time. So I think because BTSN was set up in the middle of the pandemic, we're very unlucky not to be able to meet up as much as we liked. So we didn't really have any proper networking events. Alex, the one you came to at Salesforce Tower was pretty much our first proper networking event. Yes, we'd got together at different community events before, but to say we set up in June 2020, and our first proper networking event was in March 2022, it's madness, really. So, and a lot of the members said to me, like, we need to get in front of each other more. So it's more FaceTime. That's the key one. And that could be events like the Salesforce one, or it could just be meetups like the one you came to last month. Just brings people together. And then second of all, we want to be able to educate our members more. So I want BTSN to be a place where if you're a salesperson or if you're a customer success manager or if you're in another position in the commercial teams and you're not maybe getting when you've got a question at work and you can't really get the answer to it, I want it to be a place where you come to BTSN and you get those answers, whether it's asking people in the Slack group or whether it's a workshop that we put on. You're getting different little nuggets of information that you maybe not getting in your role. And then lastly, we want to be able to have like collaboration across the community. So mentoring within within the community. So like more senior people mentoring junior people, but then also maybe going into like schools and universities and colleges and giving back in that sense. So those three areas, I feel like that's what we're focusing on. And I think that's really delivering value back to members and also helping us with our mission of hopefully increased representation of Black people in tech sales.
Yeah, well, I feel like it does make sense. You've starting out, and I think at TK we've not been too dissimilar. You want to get your name out there, you want to do as much as you can, and you do find yourself saying yes to everything so that you can build that brand and the goodness around what you're doing. But the more success you have, the more you're right. You feel like you need to go, right, actually, let's bring it back so that we've got a bit more of a cohesive vision that we can really execute on rather than being so scattergun. I think it's almost the way that it is in any startup scenario, right? Whether you're a kind of a charity or your own business or anything in between. We resonate with that. I found it really interesting that you speak about Salesforce because my husband works there and he also listens to the podcast, and they've done some really good things with their own ERG recently, like we do at Microsoft and like a lot of the other companies that are part of TK. One of the things I think is really important to understand is we know that allies out there are some of the biggest people they are the biggest community that can help us to succeed in all of our missions around racial equality. And for those that are part of the ally community that are hearing about what BTSN are doing, you're saying about all of these great initiatives that you've got, all the ways you're going to support people to progress in tech and in their careers. What do you say to the allies who are listening to things like this? Like, how are they part of the solution to help here? Because arguably, there are our group, there's your company, there's your recruitment company, but we are the minority in this, in helping. The majority have got to come on board, right? So if they're listening and they're like, well, what does it really mean? How can I help? How can I get involved? Do you have anything that you would say to that allyship community?
Yeah, like BTSN is open to anyone who supports our mission. So I think some people have admittedly asked me, is is it open to white people or is it open to someone who's not black? And yeah, it is. Come along. Like, I can think of a few people who have been involved in events and who have got a real passion for creating change or driving change in the industry. And I always say, come along, learn from us, learn from the members, learn from what they want, learn from maybe the challenges that they're having, and be a spokesperson for BTSN, whether it's going back to your business and speaking to your senior leadership team, whether you are a leader and changing the way that you have processes internally, whether you're a talent manager or a VP of sales, come and listen to us and take action off the back of that as well. I think that's what I think the problem is with like some of the events that you have, a lot of these D&I events or sessions around increasing representation. I think a lot of it is kind of listening, hearing it, but there's no action off the back of that. So I think for allies is if they are going to be part of BTSN, I think like come along, like I said, and listen, but then create like action off the back of that. So look, we're open to everyone. We're open to anyone who shares our mission. And I think it'd be important, it's good to have different voices as well. Like I read a book called, haven't finished it actually, I keep digging back into it, Rebel Ideas. Have you heard of it? And it's all about diversity of thought. So although, yes, we've got a very diverse group of people in terms of we've got black salespeople, it's probably good to have people who are thinking differently as well to help us with our mission. So I'm open to anyone else who's interested in getting involved in BTSN if you're not black, if you come from a different background.
Yeah, and I wanted to try and maybe take more of a bird's eye view to what your group is and basically around the topic that we're speaking about today. So obviously with BTSN, that is in a specific channel for specific people within a specific role. Now we have listeners that are going to be from various different roles within the tech industry and various different backgrounds as well, who may be thinking, I like the sound of BTSN, however, I don't think it is for me, but I do want to potentially find a group or create a group or community that's similar. What would be the three key things you would tell that person to do in terms of trying to either set up that community or join that community?
Yeah, so do you mean so I think if someone is from not in a sales role, first of all, and they are looking to get into BTSN, that's fine. Come along. We're open to it. Like, you don't have to be in a sales position. I think like the name Black Tech Sales Network can be quite, if you're not a salesperson, you think, well, it's not for me.
It's almost a bit like, oh, well, I'm not in sales, therefore.
Yeah, exactly. But,
yeah.
I think to be clear, like it's almost like the Black Tech Commercial Network, which, because it's open to people who are in all kind of commercial roles across like in tech businesses, whether it's a SDR, a CSM, sales engineer, etc. But at many of the events we've had, a lot of the attendees are not in sales roles, but you know they still want to get behind our mission. So I'm open to that. Whether if people are interested in setting up communities themselves, I think is this what you're asking me, Alex, about where to start setting one up yourself, or?
Yeah, where to start if you wanted to set one up yourself, that's right.
Yeah, so I think the key thing you have to think about if you're going to set another one up, whether it's a different space, is you just have to have a clear objective, like why you're setting it up, what's the reason? Because I think a lot of people jump into these things and it's kind of, it's a good idea, but it's like, what do you really want to be striving towards? Because if you haven't got an objective or a mission, and you get a bit lost, kind of what we were talking about earlier, when you have too many things on the table, it's kind of like, well, where we're going with this. I think I was there at some point, and we had to really make the mission statement quite clear. Second of all, I'd try and niche it, because there's so many different communities nowadays. A lot of people have said to me is, why don't Black Tech Sales Network be more of a Black tech network? Well, there's loads of them. There's so many of them. And there's not many of them that are focused around sales or commercial roles. So I think that's really helped us get ahead. And that may mean we're never going to be 20,000 members, but I think we'll deliver the value back to the 1,000 members that we hopefully will be soon, or the 2,000 members that we will be hopefully soon. So I think that's important. And think about having a team around you as well. So a lot of people may be setting up communities by themselves or with a small group, but really make sure everyone's got their positions and their roles that they're going to play really clear on how they're going to deliver value back to that community. I made the mistake before of not really delegating roles out, and it's probably I'm pretty crap at like delegating because in my head I'm like, well, they're not getting paid for it and it's free, but you'd be surprised how much people want to help. So I think it's just being smart and delegating tasks out to other people, or else you're never going to be able to grow. So yeah, I think having a clear objective and a mission statement, being able to niche it and focus on a certain area, and then third of all, I'd say having a good team around you as well.
I mean, you sound like you're part of TCare. I feel like we're going through some exactly the same growing problems as we look to achieve our missions. And I do also think you make a really great point about know what you want to achieve, however big or small that is, because my day job is working in education, and I also think when you're getting involved in projects that are passion orientated like ours, passion will only sustain you for so long. And I think you need to move past the passion and have that as an underlying almost fire that builds you up, but also you still got a strategy, still got a plan, still got a view. And yeah, I think that's really important for all organisations that are looking to grow, irrespective of where they're focusing. In terms of some of the things that you were saying about kind of not only your community but also your business, I'm interested in a couple of things, because first of all, it's not just about those that are, I'm not in sales, therefore is this a community that's part of me because I don't work in that, even though I might want to aspire to it. But there's also the fact that the tech community in general is a really buoyant place to be, and it offers a lot of opportunity across a lot of different areas. So we often might be talking to people who aren't in sales in the tech industry, but might not be in sales in any industry. So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on, well, actually, how do we appeal to some of them? Because we know that it's a great place to be, and I said it's got all those opportunities, but also, do you worry, or do you have a view on whether there is a perception of sales just amongst the Black community? Like, is this a place that they see where they can be successful or should be successful or will fit in? I'm interested in kind of the tech view, but also actually when it is a sales, is there a perception of actually it's just not what, we don't do this? Do you see that as a prevalent thought?
Massively, huge. Like, I think I always give this the scenario when Black people don't like to be sold to, I feel. So, and it's like, those are the people that if someone's selling in the street, they usually think, well, I'm not going to get anything out of this guy, because we're more like, I'm not. Do you know
what I mean? Like,
yeah. It's like, I'm not. I feel like we're less open to being sold to, and we see right through the kind of salesy approach, right? So I feel like when you mention the word sales, that's what they think about. Whereas it's completely different to that in the tech space. It's like someone said to me the other day, I spoke to a student and they said they want to be in a consulting role. And I said, why do you want to be consulting? It's all like problem solving. Well, tech salespeople are solving problems all the time, just making commission off the back of it. So you're consulting businesses on how you can help them, but you're making commission and you're selling it at a higher price, and you make a lot of money from it. And I think in terms of sales, again, going back to it, the perception is that it's a bit sleazy. No one really makes that much money from selling for other people. And I think that perception massively needs to change, because that's not what it's like in tech. Look, there's still some industries that are very old school in their sales approach. But Alex, you'll know this. Angela, I don't know if I didn't ask you before. Are you in sales?
Through and through, mate.
Yeah. So you'll know this, that like it's completely different to what the perception of like a sleazy car salesperson is. It's really different to that. It's meetings, it's understanding, it's consulting, it's building a relationship up. And I think those things are all very, like, Black people are very naturally good at those things. So yeah, I think there's a big perception on sales. There's also a big perception, I know you didn't ask me this, but I think tech as well. Like, I think the problem with the tech space and not seeing as many Black people getting into tech or tech sales, we don't really have any role models. Like, most Black sales professionals or Black people in tech are their first generation. Like, their parents weren't working in tech. It wasn't an industry that our our mums and dads, our aunties and uncles, our grandmas and granddads worked in. So you're the first one. So you're almost fighting that battle of your parents maybe wanting to just go down different routes. But then also it's like, I think there's certain industries that have seemed to be successful in the Black community, which is like being a lawyer, being like an accountant, working as a doctor. There's certain industries that have seen to be successful. Maybe your uncle was really successful in one of those roles, or your mum or whatever. There's no one to say that, oh, my uncle or my parent or my dad or my auntie was really successful in tech. So you're the first one. So I think that's why there's a lack of awareness as well. That's the problem. I know I've just jumped into another answer there. What was the first part of your question about?
No, I think that was a good one. And do you know what? Ignore it. Wasn't good enough because we've forgotten it. We can move on. But it's an interesting point that you're selling the industry as well as then also selling sales beyond the industry. So it's sounds like a complex, but an interesting place to be.
That's it. I wanted BTSN to be a place for when if you are in a completely different industry. Like, for example, my housemate Michael, he hasn't worked in tech before, but I think being surrounded by like BTSN and coming to the Salesforce event, it's now pivoting his career towards maybe a tech industry. And that's why I'm open to people coming into BTSN who are not in sales already, because maybe we can be the network that encourages you to make a pivot in the industry. The best is when like you get a young person who has maybe in like wanting to work in legal and done a little bit of experience in a law firm, and then they see what careers opportunities are in tech sales, and then the career just goes like this. That's what I love BTSN to be about.
And Niall, if you're we've spoken about the opportunity that sales presents. You can do great things, but let's also talk about the fact that it's fun, right? Mm-hmm. Lots of people that work in sales have a good time doing it, and you get all of the great things that you can have a great career side, but how do you sell that other side of it, which is we can have a bit of a laugh when we're doing this as well as getting all the benefits of having a high-flying career?
Yeah. So like when I speak to students, it's always, that's a big part of it. It's every day is kind of, people say you're your own boss. I guess you're not your own boss unless you set your own company up. But you still run your day-to-day. Hopefully you're in a business where you're not being micromanaged, but a lot of it's down to you. You set your own kind of schedule for the day. You've got targets to hit, but you meet them the way you feel that's best. And I think that's great about sales. The ups and downs of sales are actually quite fun. I know people like to talk about like the downside of sales in terms of like losing out on deals and missing targets, but I think that makes you a better person because it strives you on to be able to deal with like rejection and failure and think about ways and how you can be better in the future. So yeah, I think when I speak to students a lot, I always talk about the life skills that you learn from sales, and also like getting commission, going on like president's clubs, away on like with the team, or going on incentives in terms of like lunch club and things like that. So I always talk about the incentives because I feel like a lot of especially the students I speak to, are still looking to go down those sort of old-fashioned careers. I'm not saying anyone that gets into finance is wrong. I'm not saying anyone that gets into like a law firm is wrong, but be more open-minded to these new kind of ways of working, especially in the tech space and especially in sales. So yeah, I always talk about how fun it is and the benefits of it.
Yeah. That's really interesting, and I'd like to pick up on the point that you've said about students and your whole focus that BTSN's got around students. What are you seeing right now in terms of the behaviour from students with regards to sales in general? Are they sort of looking at it as the same as when they look at being a doctor or a lawyer, or is it something different? Like where does it sit within that community?
I still think there's a lot of work to do. It goes back to what I was saying in terms of sales not being seen as a career. I think a lot of people still kind of fall into sales out there, they still say, or got into sales by accident. So we need to be the drivers behind, no, I wanted to go into sales for this reason. So we need to be able to show those reasons. That's what BTSN is big for. It's showing that you've got 400 black sales professionals who are already in the industry being successful. It's like, look at those guys as role models. But I think students are still very... I think, if I'm honest, sometimes we've gone into school, universities, and they've seen Black Tech Sales Network. And again, the word sales, I think, if I'm honest, it might put them off, like coming to a webinar or listening in. Maybe if it was just about, if we just market ourselves as getting into tech, I feel like we'd have a lot more conversations, because I think a lot of students are interested in tech. There's a lot of stuff going around on TikTok nowadays. I don't know if you've seen the videos, but it's like a day in the life of my day at Google or Microsoft, for example. And I think people are opening their eyes and more open-minded to tech. But I think some of them don't know how to get into it. So I want to be, we want to be the community that is like, well, if you haven't studied engineering and computer science, this is how you get into tech on the commercial side. So I think there's still a lot of work to do there. But it's going to change. It's going to change, I think, because like I said, social media it has a lot to say around tech nowadays. So maybe we get the interest in getting into tech first, and then we can come in and help them actually see the different opportunities that exist in tech.
Yeah, and that's so true though, isn't it? I mean, by the way, I loved your point around it's people don't aspire to be a salesperson, right? It's so different. But if you go want to be a teacher, I do think you made a good point earlier about being maybe seen a bit sleazy, maybe a bit, you don't have to have a degree or a huge education to get into sales. And it's not because sales is easy, but it's because sales often isn't a quantifiable skill. If you can make good relationships with people, if you can problem solve, those are things that you can learn in any kind of, I guess, formal education. But you can also learn on the job, and that's maybe why, I don't know, people fall into it, because these are kind of life skills and skills that they've built maybe from team sports, let's say, or from cookery clubs they've been part of, who knows. But I don't know, I think it's a really good question. I don't know if I have an answer to it, to be honest. Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm thinking, because with sales, right, I feel there's a certain stigma of it is, like, I like to call it in the trenches sales style, which is you're on the phone making X amount of dials in a day, trying to send these emails as quick as possible, and everything's just about output, right? I feel like that's the part that it's perceived to be, almost like we're stockbrokers and we're having to make that amount of calls within a day. And I think the side that we don't really show is about the fact that we're going out for lunch and we're meeting our clients, and some of us are best friends with our clients. I've got a client that I work with, and they're based in Leeds, and the relationship that I have with him, we speak twice a week, maybe 3 times a week if you really need something from me. But like you end up building these relationships with people that you can then take on past work, not just having to have this business relationship with them. So I think it's the stereotypes, isn't it? The stereotypes that have been placed by the previous generations have just been continued on, and I feel like it's changing at the moment. A lot of people are shouting about all of their successes that they have within the sales community or in the tech community as well. And I think with that, we'll get more and more people going, you know what, let me find out what this industry is, what it's about, how I can get involved and be part of a community there. And they'll discover things like BTSN and TCare and whatnot. And I just think you're in a great position now if you've come out of university and you're a school leaver. There's so much different paths that you can go down. I'd definitely, first and foremost, join something like BTSN, where you can get that support. And I mean, I've been to some of the events. Some of the people that have been there have been in their roles for 2 or 3 months, and they're sort of looking back at the older ones, where I think I'm sort of more in the middle of that, hopefully. But they're looking at us to say, how have you succeeded? How have you got to where you are? How have you dealt with some of the setbacks that you've had within your career? And I remember when I started my role, first role in sales, I didn't have that community at all. I had to just look to my colleagues, and in some cases they were helpful, in some cases they were not. Some were just simply too busy. But in short, to answering your question, I think it's the stereotypes that are really driving it.
No, I agree.
And Niall, I also think...
Sorry, go on.
Sorry, I was going to say something else that you said, and I totally agree with everything Alex said there. What we get into tech, and what we all will have seen, is that the opportunities are abundant across different roles. So actually, when you move into it, you might start in sales, you might even move in a more technical role. You might start in a technical role, move across into sales, or in any one of the millions of other things that we know that we can do. And recognizing that tech maybe doesn't necessarily mean that actually you are just a salesperson, you aren't just a technical person. In fact, Gartner have said that by 2025, 80% of all IT products will be built by non-IT professionals. So if we take that ethos of actually, you don't have to be technical to build technical stuff, you don't have to be in sales to sell stuff, and vice versa. So actually, maybe it's about breaking down the stigmas of what sales means overall, as opposed to just feeding up with pigeonholed, right? Because I think tech is more than that. That's the experiences in my career anyway. And I'd like to think that with the confidence, the backing, with support of companies like yours, actually, everyone can have experiences like those.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there's a lot of people within BTSN who have moved roles recently. Like you look in the LinkedIn and they've gone from being a salesperson to more relationship management, or they've gone from sales into engineering. And that you're right. There's so many different opportunities that exist once you get into the tech world. And I guess you just got to find what's right for you. That might start off with working in a position that's not right for you, but then BTSN hopefully is a place where you learn from other people in different positions who can mentor you into getting into different roles. And that's what the celebrate part start with BTSN is about. It's about celebrating our members and showcasing the talent that we've got, so others can see what's happening in the industry.
Yeah. No, totally agree. And I mean, you see about people moving. I keep seeing that all of the time as well. And I keep hearing at the minute, it's a bit of a candidate's market. There's a lot of opportunity going on. There's a lot of stuff out there. Like, are you seeing that? And what do you think that means for people who might want to progress or might be thinking, maybe I should move, I'm not sure. Like, what would your guidance be at this moment in time in terms of what's out there in the tech industry?
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm a recruiter, and it's just, there's so many opportunities now out there. Each candidate, if you've got anything about you, you've got sort of 2 or 3, 4 opportunities on the table. So yeah, it's tough for people like me as a recruiter because we've got to have the right opportunities on the table. But yeah, definitely a candidate-led market. Candidates are getting, I've seen a stat the other day that the average salary increase is between sort of 20 and 30% now that people are getting when they move roles. So
wow.
Like if you are thinking about a move, by all means, speak to recruiters, speak to businesses, find out what they've got. You've heard obviously the Great Resignation that's happened since COVID. I think some people feel they feel like it's the wrong thing to do to look for roles whilst they're at a business, but there's nothing wrong with keeping an eye on the market, is there? So speak to people like myself, speak to other businesses if they look interesting, and because you might be able to get a quite high increase in salary if that's absolutely what you're looking for. So I definitely say leverage this time right now, and then see what's out there. There's no harm in looking, is there?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, not.
Give you a call, mate. We'll see what we can
do
there. So
that was me selling my.
Too right.
Give me a call. Yeah.
I just wanted to slightly change tack here because I think you mentioned before about how your prior business helped you set up BTSN. There may be individuals who, like I said, they're looking to set up something similar to BTSN and are not sure where they can go and get that support. How did your previous company give you that support to set up BTSN? What tools did they give you?
Yeah, so my previous company was called Wiser Elite. So we had other communities before BTSN. So we started off with the first community, which was for all kind of just top performing salespeople in the tech space. Then we had an SDRs one. So if anyone that's what SDR is, a sales development representative, which is usually the first sales role you get into as a graduate in tech. So when I had the idea of BTSN, it made sense to follow the path of those other successful communities and get the support of Wiser. So yeah, they were brilliant in terms of they put resources behind it in terms of the marketing. Wiser was half a creative agency as well. So I had some really good people for designing and coming up with campaigns and social media. So that really helped. And then we also had someone in a community manager role, a girl called Izzy. And she took the role in terms of managing all the communities alongside the founders of each community. And she would do a lot of the stuff on social media, the planning of events, coordinating things like the mentor program. So that was brilliant. BTSN wouldn't be where it is without Wiser. I'll always say that. So I think you have to just be in the right business. They were supportive of me in terms of building it and growing it and giving me the reins to kind of manage it myself. Some businesses may not be like that. They may see it as just something to make money from it, but you have to look at the long run. And I think that's what my previous business were pretty good at.
And that's great to hear that you had that support, because any network like this, I don't think really gets up and running on its own, or they can do, but it's hard enough with the support, let alone, feeling like you're doing it in a silo. So It's great to know that there are businesses out there that are absolutely front and centre of building communities like yours, and you are where you are today for that reason.
I think just let me jump in there. I think another important thing is try and make it aligned with your role as well, because then you can. Mine was very much aligned. I was speaking to people a lot, candidates who could maybe go into BTSN, or speak to businesses who could maybe be interested in BTSN. I think if it's completely different away from your role, that's not a bad thing. You may have another interest, but I think it'd be very hard to manage your day-to-day if it's completely different areas of the business or different areas of focus. So I think that's something to think about.
That's amazing advice, actually. And I received something similar way back in the day when I worked at HP. And I remember the current MD then said to me when I was looking to progress, if you want to change roles, he was like, change roles or change segment. He was like, but do one or the other. He's like, try and keep a hand in something that you know, because otherwise trying to change everything at the same time is actually giving yourself an awfully big, hill to climb, and just limiting your chances of success. So I can see absolutely how that would remain the same when you're looking to looking to build communities like this. It did make me think in terms of the companies that you're recruiting for now. I'm really intrigued to hear. You know how important that supportive culture is. So when companies come into you saying, look, Niall, I need recruiting for X role, this is what I'm after, do you take a view on, well, actually, what's this company's culture like? What are they like when I'm bringing candidates in? And is that going to be the kind of environment I'm going to be proud to say I've recruited for you and you've got a brilliant person starting whenever?
Yeah, 100%. I think I always do, almost, I know you in tech sales, discovery is the word I use a lot. I'm the same. So I'll do a discovery call to find out what the business looks like in terms of initiatives around D&I, what the leadership team's like, what their mission is, what their culture's like. Because one, it makes it more exciting and a better relationship for me with that business. But also, it's only going to make it more unlikely that I'm going to place candidates there if you haven't got a poor culture, your diversity is poor, your management's poor. There's no point in me doing that. So I think, 100%, I always look into that. Sometimes you don't see everything in the beginning, so you may think, oh, it's a good opportunity to work on, and you start recruiting for them, but then you find this stuff out later on. But you just have to have a conversation with the business and say, look, well, candidates not getting the right experience coming through the interview process, or candidates have left the business. So, I think it's really important for me. Definitely, good question. That.
And I think that's actually really good for anyone who's looking to use, Pursue Talent as a recruiter, because the right role without the right culture really isn't the right anything at all, is it? Because very soon you're going to be unhappy, and it should be quite confidence building, I would say, for candidates that are saying, I want to move, but I want to feel like someone's going to look after me, and not just go, actually, a role's a role, see you later, on to the next one. So,
retention is really important. Retention, if you're trying to build a high-performing sales team or a commercial team, you're going to have to be able to retain your team, and it all comes with the culture that you're building. So I think a lot of businesses, especially the tech companies that I work with, grow really quickly. They get a lot of funding, they grow really fast, and then they just hire loads of people. Whereas if you're a little bit more structured with your approach in growth, then you can bring in the right people who are going to match your culture. You may grow a little bit slower, but you're going to be able to retain them, and you're not spending loads of money on recruitment costs by filling empty seats, etc. So retention's a massive one, and that comes by building a good culture internally and using a recruiter that understands your culture as well.
Yeah, for sure. And fundamentally, you do a good job, they're going to come back to you as well, right? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy all around. So
exactly.
So I guess first and foremost, thank you, Niall, for your time. It's been useful. Really appreciate your insights and the information that you've been able to share with not just myself and Jeramie, but also the listeners as well. Is there any final comments that you'd like to make, or final insights that you think would be useful for our listeners?
Yeah, I think if you've got an idea in your head about setting up a community up, just start. So like BTSN for me started off with literally just messaging people saying, do you want to be part of this network? They said yes. I put them in a WhatsApp group. Suddenly we had a community of 50 people in a WhatsApp group. That was it. And then you just kind of build it from there. Maybe have a bit more of a structure, more of a mission and objective before than I did. But it just shows it doesn't take a lot to get started. A lot of people already have people in a network that can be part of their community. So just ask them and start from there. Even if it's 20 people, you slowly grow, especially once you get your mission and your objectives clear. So just get going. Yeah, just start.
So basically, don't ask, don't get, which, as anyone in my life knows, is my favourite saying, Niall. So I think that's a really, really good place to finish. But look, thank you for your time. It's been great to hear about all of your insights. I would really urge everyone to take a look at Black Tech Sales Network. They're all available online. And also, if you're looking for a new role, hit up Niall at Pursue Talent. So, clearly he's going to do a good job for any of you. So look, thank you. Lovely to speak. And great conversation.
Cheers, Alex. Cheers, Del. I think what you're doing is brilliant as well. So I'm happy to help as much as possible going forward. Maybe we can collaborate on an event or something in the future. So.
Yeah, definitely. Let's offline.
Great.
But so for our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the TK Podcast, and we look forward to hearing or having you on the next one. So take care and enjoy the rest of your day.
Cheers. Catch you later,
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye-bye.